Hey friends, welcome back to this channel. My name is Stacy with Stacy Makes, and if you are new here, I appreciate you being here. We do cozy crochet things here, and if you are not new, welcome back to this channel. Thank you again for tuning in to my crochet craziness. So today's video is going to be a market recap, some of the market setup, film of the actual setup, teardown, those kinds of things. And then I will go through what I sold and tell you how much I made at this market. If I say we in this video, that is because my daughter Tara, if you don't know, my daughter Tara sets up with me. She is Old Soul Factory here on YouTube, Old Soul Factory Crochet on Instagram. And she sets up with me, and she is almost half this inventory is her, the other half is mine. And then we travel together through these markets, which is just super fun. So, my actual Stacy Makes an Apple Tree Boutique is just me. But when I say we go to the market, we're doing this, we have sold, but all of the sales that I speak about in this video are purely mine. We record everything together. And then at the end of the market, she has her own notebook. And I have my own. So every time we make a sale, I put my stuff, I write my stuff in my notebook, which is just a notebook. And then we write her stuff on her own little notebook. And then she adds up all of her stuff. And we calculate her part of the booth fee and her transactions. And I give her that part of the money that was in usually just cash. So anyway. So it's really nice to have a partner in this because, it is really hard to make a bunch of crochet inventory. We both work full time too. So this is just a side hobby for us. And just imagine this videos with, half of this inventory. And if you've got a market 2 to 3 weeks, we only do them like 2 to 3 weeks apart because you can only make so much crochet so fast. So, and even then, between both of us, sometimes it's hard to recoup our inventory. So, but anyway, so it is fun to spend these weekends with her. And, well, let me tell you a little bit about this market, and then I will get into some of the clips, and then we will do a wrap up at the end of everything that sold and what I made. So this market was the Midwest market in Effingham, Illinois. It's about an hour and 20 minutes north of where we live. And it was the first time I'd ever been to this market. I actually had never attended this market or set up at this market. It's not the first year they've had it. I think it was the 5th or 6th year that they've had this market. And they had just passed it over to a new person this year, but I don't think that really changed much. But they do charge admission. There's a mall in Effingham that is pretty much empty. There's not much in it. There's 2-3 stores left. And so they actually set up in the halls of the mall, and then outside they put these big fences up, and then they set up food vendors and even more mobile boutiques and other people outside. And you have to pay to get in. It's $3 admission if you're 12 or over. And I looked back at all the pictures, the history. There was returning vendors, which is always a good sign. So I had done some research, but again, hadn't actually been to this market. So we traveled up Friday. This market was actually Friday night, 4 to 8. And then Saturday it was 9 to 4. And it's not super, super far from us. So we were going to get done at 8, travel home, get home by 9:30. You left your stuff completely set up because they had security and we were inside and they were just going to lock the place up. And then we were going to drive home, get home about 9:45, 10 o'clock. And then we didn't have to be back up there till 9. And so we were going to just leave at 7, the next morning, and it wasn't going to be too terrible. But then I had a lovely follower that offered a fantastic hotel discount to us at a really nice hotel in Effingham, which I don't want to say her name or where it was from just because, I do appreciate her. And it was so cheap that it was like not even worth the gas and the 3 hours of our time to come home and back. So we ended up staying. So that was extremely nice that we got to stay up there. And so I think that's it as far as what I want to preface the market with. Friday night and a Saturday, pay to get in. So I will go ahead and insert the footage that I do have of the space before, the hyperlapse of us setting up, the clips of when the booth was completely done, and then a hyperlapse of us tearing it down. It took us 40 minutes, I think, not even that long to tear down and pack up our car. It would have been faster if someone would not have forgotten their handy dandy dolly, which I won't tell you who somebody was, but it took a little bit longer because we had to hand carry all of the shelves in one by one, or two by two some cases. So that took us a little longer and it's a little more exhausting. But thankfully, I needed to preserve my camera battery for transactions. So Tara filmed the hyperlapses and shared them with me, which is amazing. She's going to do a market vlog as well and a recap. So you'll see the same setup and teardown. That's the only things that will really be the same in both of them. And she will give her own summary of everything that she sold as well. So if you want to see everything we sold together, watch this video and then watch her video when it does come out. So I think maybe she's going to try to target on Tuesday. So with that, let's get into the footage, and at the very end, I will recap what I made, and I'll try to put up some pictures of the actual setup and then just kind of go through some of the highlights of what I sold that's in that picture. I don't think I'm going to go through every single thing. So anyway, enjoy these clips, and I will see you in just a second. Hey y'all, so it is day 2 at 2 in the afternoon, so there's only 2 hours left, and it's really already started to wind down. There's way less people here, but day 2 was definitely a much better day than day 1, which we were told would happen from the people who had been here before, so that was good. I don't know a total yet. Obviously I'll work on that as I do a market recap. I'll make sure that you guys get a total, but I just wanted to check in. And me and Tara were just talking about how strange it is that how you could go to one market and sell a ton of something, and so you spend a bunch of time, like, you know, making that thing, and then you go to the next market and you sell none of that and a whole bunch of something else that you hadn't sold. It's so crazy. But anyway, I'll check in with you guys when we're done. I don't know that I'll get any video of us tearing down, but definitely will come back up for a market recap and let you guys know all the deets of what sold. So I'll talk to you then. Bye. Hey friends, so just checking in before I crash. Got home, completely unloaded the car, and changed into my comfy clothes, unloaded my bag. I have to do that. Like, I'm just one of those people that, like, I'm already hot and sweaty and usually tired, but it's like I want to do it when I come home. So I always come home and unpack, everything out, put my shelves and everything back where they go so that I can fully relax that night and the next day to just kind of reset my brain mentally and get all the physical stuff done. So I did all that. We unloaded the car, Tara came in, the dog, the new puppy, missed me a ton and was like all over me. It's funny. But anyway, finally got her settled down because she was like super excited that I was home. And anyway, I just changed into my lounge clothes. I'm gonna go add everything up for the night, and then I hope to film in the morning or tomorrow sometime and get you the full recap out and let you guys know how we did. It was not as big as I had kind of hoped for what I paid. So we'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow. Well, for you it'll be in like 10 seconds, but I'm not completely disappointed, but I'm kind of, I'm not going to go back next year, but definitely not as bad as it could have been. So we'll talk about it more when I get on tomorrow and get a chance to add it all up and let you know how it went. So we'll catch you guys later. Good night for now. Bye. Hopefully you enjoyed those clips and you saw we were set up on a corner, so that was not something we paid extra for. It was just by happenstance that we were in this corner, which was actually a really great location because the way that we have set up in a corner before, but we set up our cheap $5, $8, $10, some of our $10 stuff kind of in the corner of that booth, and we caught people coming, like, if you saw our corner of our booth, straight down one hallway, like we filmed from that direction, was to go outside to all of the other booths. Or if you started at the outside, you came down, you saw our booth at the corner, and you turned to go to the rest of them. So you had to kind of come by our booth no matter what to get to the rest of the vendors or to go outside to the outside vendors, which was super handy. That was, like I said, by just happenstance that we got assigned a corner, and I love that. It did take us a little bit to figure out how to set up. The people next to us were already set up when we got there, and there was a table just like right along the flat side of our booth, and we're like, okay, how do we set up and get the most out of this corner? We wanted to see it before we really had decided, and so we set up, and then when we came back Saturday morning, they had moved everything around. So they had reset up their stuff, and the way we had set ours up didn't quite make as much sense. So we moved our things around, as you saw in probably another video on the second day. We moved our tables around, and we moved our bookshelves that you saw out of the little cubby hole of that empty space, because it was kind of dark being back in there. So we moved them kind of out where people could hopefully see them a little bit better since we had space. And then we moved the pumpkin bookshelf out to be back to the cheap stuff that was on the corner. And I think that just worked better for us. We had a little bit more space for the full day to also be back behind it and for people to kind of check out. And that just ended up working out really well, that they ended up moving their things, which, you know, I was told, like at the end of Friday night, neither one of us had done really well. And I asked the vendor that was straight across from us, had like wax warmers and like scented like soy pebbles, wax pellets. And I asked her, because I heard her talking to somebody else and I knew she had been there like, I think pretty much every year. And I said, is this pretty typical for Friday night? And she said that it is always slower on Friday night, but it was more slow this year than past years. She said it could be several things, but there was a big football game going on. She's like, but Saturday is twice as busy. She's like, but maybe it won't be as busy as it was last year because Friday night wasn't as busy. She wasn't really sure. She was a little disappointed in the traffic Friday night. But I was glad to hear that Friday night's not usually the busy night, because if she had told me that Friday night's the night everybody comes, I would have really been worried about Saturday. At the very end, I will tell you exactly how much was Friday and how much was Saturday. But for now, I'm going to scoot over just a little bit, and that way I can put up the pictures that I'm going to speak to. And I'm not going to go over every single item that sold. I'm going to go over some of the highlights. And these pictures, I think, are actually these pictures might be from the end of day one. So there is already maybe a few things that are missing that were sold on day one in the pictures, but I'm going to try to give you the highlights. I'll put a picture up here of a certain place in our booth, and I'll speak to kind of what sold that's in that picture. And then I'll put the next picture up and so on. I don't plan to link everything down in the description, because as I speak to what I made this week and new patterns that I've tried, I link everything all the time when I actually introduce it in my normal videos. But if there is something that you don't want to go back and dig for, that you're really wanting to know whose pattern that is, if I didn't mention it, you know, feel free to ask down in the comments below. Okay, I'll try to answer you. Okay, so first off, the end cap setup that we originally had, the Fred the turtle that's in this picture sold one carvent clip and only one pumpkin. I was a little disappointed in the pumpkins. I actually spent my last 2 days before the market finishing up like 5 or 6 more pumpkins, because I just really thought that it was already time and that I would get the crowd that didn't have kids or teens, and that the crochet pumpkins would do really well. But I only sold one crochet pumpkin. Okay, next picture is our bin that goes on the end that has our 5 and 8 and some of our 10. There's more 10 on the back shelf. And in this picture, I sold, so this is just my sales, not Tara's. I sold 15 $5 items, mostly stingrays and and 3 chicken nuggets. I made 3 while I was sitting there the first night and put faces on them. And that's really all I had the yarn to put faces on for. I thought the piece was long enough to do more than that. And I had not made any nuggets. And I was like, oh, I could take this yarn, and that way, you know, $5 items are selling really well. I can do some of these nuggets and throw them out. So I made 3 at the show Friday night and put them in the $5 bin and put different faces on them. And one girl came and bought all 3 of them. So the 3 nuggets sold, and then from there, really mostly stingrays in the $5 category. And then I had some little whales and some octopus, not very many. I think I sold maybe 1 of each. And so I sold 15 of the $5 bin items. I sold 6 $8 bin items. Most of that was the baby turtles from lmsart.co on Instagram. It's a free pattern. And then I sold a whale or 2 from my, I don't keep track of every single item. I just write $5 bin and I tally mark them, but I'm just remembering that I sold at least 1 whale, if not 2, that you saw I made last week, I think it was. I just kind of freehanded my own pattern to make it a little bit of a bigger whale. Okay, next picture, which was kind of around the corner from the front end, the first day anyway. We moved it around. I sold 2 of my 4 skunks, which this is my pattern, on Etsy. They got tons of attention Friday night, all Saturday, and then really it was the end of Saturday when someone came and bought 2. It was just funny that like everybody commented on them and picked them up and was like, oh, I hadn't ever seen a skunk before, and they thought they were funny. So definitely going to continue to make them, but I did sell 2 out of the 4 that I had, 1 pink and 1 black one. I sold the hermit crab that I made last week that was Stitches by Patty's pattern. I sold an octo or 2 that's in this picture, the possum from Knotting Hook Crochet, and the hot dog. I only had 1, but I sold the hot dog that was from Crochet Customs pattern. It's really, really cool. So I sold both of those items in this picture. That was the main stuff that I sold from this picture. Okay, next picture was the bigger table that we had that had the tiered rack, and then we had a tray on it for a while, and then the keychains went over onto this table for a while. We moved them kind of around a little bit here and there. We moved them a couple different places, but anyway, picture's going to be up here. Off of this table, the main things that I sold off this table was I finally sold the little mini cow that I made. If you watch the 1 pattern 5 yarns, I made Madeline Mako's mini cow in everything from skinny chenille, I think, all the way up to jumbo yarn. And I just sold the posh version, which was really small. I actually marked it down because I had it at 22 because there's so many. It takes just as long as the jumbo version, but it's tiny. So I had it at 22 and I finally just marked it down to 18 and it sold. I sold the sitting puppy. I sold 1 of the bats. I had 2. I sold the shark by Meg's Makes Crochet. The jumbo Fred that I had. Oh my gosh. I have a picture of this kid. I'll go ahead and put it up here. Just so adorable. They bought it kind of as a emotional support kind of thing to go back and forth between their home and family. So adorable. And then I sold a brontosaurus, which this mom also sent me a picture, which was just adorable. Of this little girl with her brontosaurus, just like warms my heart. It's just like, this is why we do what we do. I'll share it here too. She's just adorable. And then I sold 9 keychains off of the keychain rack. And really they were all over the place. A couple ice creams, a stingray maybe, the blueberry sold. I know the pumpkin sold. I didn't sell the ghost. I can't remember every version that I sold, but I sold 9 total, and all of those were on Saturday. I sold 0 keychains on Friday night. Those sell for $6 a piece. So that's the main stuff I sold off of that table. A little strange for me to only have, well, I sold my jumbo Fred, which only had 1, and then I sold only 1 of the normal sized Freds. Now Tara, when you watch her video, she sold a ton of her Tice the Turtles, which were next to it and were a little bit cheaper, in Burnett's and Sweet Snuggles. And I mean, that probably took away a little bit from Fred, which was fine. But we had so many turtles on that table, and so many people were like, still, turtles seem to be a thing that people love and looking for. And definitely people that were specifically looking for sea turtles and specifically looking for non-sea turtles. So like, oh my gosh, you even have a non-sea turtle. I only see sea turtles. And so we'd have some comments about that. And then when people got talking about the turtles, we're like, we also have tofus over there and little babies over there. And so we had a lot of variety of turtles. So, okay, let's go to the great big racks in the back. Oh, and yeah, let's go to the great big racks in the back. Okay. My patterns, the little sitting animals, I sold 2 of Betty the Cow. I had 3, and I sold 2. The cream one and the one that looks like Norma off AC&H. I sold an elephant from Madeline Mako's pattern. The bunny with the carrot in the pocket, I've had him for a long time, and I thought, I'm not marking him down. He's worth every bit of $45, and I finally sold him for $45. I had a jumbo axolotl, which was made out of Sweet Snuggles and is Crochet by Jenna's pattern. One of my Gordons sold, which was my gator. A puffer fish, which is by Victoria Comfort Loops. The mallard that I had from Madeline Mako. I had the little chubby kitties, and I've talked about these before. There's like an 8-in-1 chubby kitty pattern on Etsy. And I had 2 of those, and both of those sold. Nooks_Hooks elephants. She's got a free pattern on Instagram. I sold at least 2 of these. I had a flounder, the fish, which was a pattern test I did for Claire the Crochet Lady, and 5 of my jumping spiders. I didn't sell any of the jumping spiders on Friday, but I sold 5 on Saturday. I actually made 2 while I was there on Saturday because they were, I sold 1 or 2, and then I'm like, I'm just going to go ahead. I had bright basic chenille there, so I'm like, I'll just make a lime green one and a blue one, and because the pink one is the first one that sold, was the one that I made in the Premier Basics that was hot pink. The cutest little girl came by and picked that up, and her mom was like, you really want a spider? She's like, yeah, I really do. She's like, okay. Kind of creeped her out. The same goes when people pick up Tara's snakes, which she sold quite a few snakes. People are like, oh, you really want a snake? And you can tell which ones are like, that's cool, and which ones are like, I don't really want that snake in my house. So funny stuff. So that's just the kind of the highlights of what I sold. That is absolutely not everything I sold off of every single shelf, just because that would take forever to try to point them all out. Just trying to give you the highlights. What I made at the market. Let's talk about what I crocheted at the market. I always try to be crocheting, and actually this, I feel like it really helps. One, it helps break up that awkwardness of feeling like, you know, what do you do while you sit there and someone's just looking and looking and looking. I don't want to completely ignore people. I always greet them when they come into the booth, obviously, but I also don't want them to just feel like I'm staring at them. And so the way that the booth was designed, we were kind of facing the inside of our booth, and people would walk down the hall, come by us, and I sat on the end, and Tara sat next to me, and I could hear people before they got to me being like, oh, she's crocheting right now, you know, and like little girls were watching me, were asking me questions about, you know, do you think it's hard to learn? How did you learn? They're like, oh my gosh, you're so fast at it, you know, and I would just keep going while they're like, what are you making? And we would talk about that. And it's just such a sweet interaction. One, it shows people that yes, it's handmade by you, that you make it. It's just yarn, it's just a hook. And they're like, really, every single thing on here is made? Yes, it's all made by us, and it's all made with yarn and a hook. And people are just amazed. But also, you know, is an opportunity to show your craft and your art to people. And in several ways, hopefully, you know, some of those little girls are like, I'm going to go home and try again, or I'm going to go ahead, you know, home and try that. Or I gave them some tips on some things to maybe try to like figure out how to do, you know, certain stitches first, get your tension down, figure out how to hold everything, right? And then once you learn all the stitches and know what all the abbreviations mean, you can move on to this, you know. So that was fun. But so I like to crochet at the show. So Friday night, I crocheted 3 chicken nuggets and 3 different faces on them. Saturday or Friday night at the hotel. So I crocheted the 3 nuggets at the show. And then at the hotel that night, I crocheted 1 mini axolotl, which didn't sell, but it was blue and lime. And that's my baby axolotl pattern on Instagram. It's free. It's in the highlights. You have to hit the highlights of free patterns to find it, because I ran out of pinned posts that were available. And then Saturday, I made 2 jumping spiders while I was there on Saturday. It was a little busier on Saturday, so it was a little harder to find time to break in and crochet. But and I didn't want to crochet my hands out. I had spent Friday also crocheting at home, some in the morning before I left, finishing up 3 or 4 pumpkins. And so, you know, I can only do so much before so I did make $43 worth of inventory while I was actually there. I should have had I did not take a full complete inventory at the end, including all of my pumpkins. I probably had $3,400-ish worth of inventory, including my pumpkins. Because I know I ended up having $200 worth of pumpkins. So the very first night I made, I sold $123 the very first night, which had it only been a one night show would have been a complete flop. Saturday, I sold 674 on Saturday for a total of 797 for both days. People ask, would you go back? As a general rule, the booth fee was $140. And I usually pay the booth fees And then if Tara does really well, she pitches in and she pays some of them. It's just something that I do because it's kind of doing all the markets and all the organizing and all that stuff. And it's just something I can do to help her out. And she doesn't ask me to. She offers all the time to pay for it, obviously. But a lot of times I pay the booth fees. And so when I go, I like to sell, if I'm going to do a 2-day market, I like to sell 10 times my booth fee, which for this market would have been $1,400. The booth fee was $140 for 2 days. Now collectively, if you took the $140 and you split it in half, I sold 10 times my half, but I do like to sell 10 times the full fee. So I didn't sell that. I sold probably more like 6 times, not even 6 times, like 5 times my fee, personally, which is still really, really good, guys. Like, I know some of you are like, gosh, I would love to have an almost $800 weekend. But for me, for the travel, for the time away, I actually took Friday off of work as well. We have had markets where I have sold twice that in one day. For a lesser booth fee. So just to put it in perspective, if I'm going to take time away from my family, away from other markets that I could be doing, I want it to be highly successful and worth our time, our energy, away from home when you could be doing other things. So that's just kind of my rule. Take it or leave it for what it is. Even if I didn't have kind of that's a really great market. I mean, really 10 times your booth fee. But even if I didn't have that rule, knowing that this year there was less vendors, less foot traffic, according to people who are returning, that if that trends for next year, then, and they have 3 of these a year, I think. They do a spring, this is the fall one, and they have a holiday one in November, which we had something else going on. But if that trends downward, that means next year's it's going to be even less people. And then the less people that are set up and people pay $3 to get in, the less they're going to feel like it's worth it. And the shoppers are just going to quit showing up. And I'm not saying that it's the end of this show and that it can't be revived. But as far as we are concerned, there's another one that was this weekend that I still really want to get into. I've applied to it 3 times now. I've applied to their fall market last year, their Christmas market last year, and their spring market. And I have yet to get in, and I really, really want to get into that market and try it. And it is that same weekend. So I want to continue to do that. So hopefully maybe I can do that instead. Or this next weekend would have been something that, some other show I turned down that would have been just as nice to have done, but I didn't because I like them to be at least 2 to 3 weeks apart to recover inventory. So $800 is a quarter of my inventory, which is great because I had way more inventory going to this show than I normally do because it's getting ready to go into the fall season and I don't want to run out. I don't want to run low. I don't want to be, stealing sleep from myself to try to just make enough to have enough to put on the table, which again is great to have a partner for because we can both, if we could both make $200 or $300 in a week and we have 2 weeks between the show, we can make we might be able to scrounge up $1,000 worth of inventory between shows, which is not enough if you got completely wiped out, but usually you don't get completely wiped out at a show. So, but anyway, $797, probably not going back. I mean, again, it was well ran. I had no complaints except for the air conditioner was not working. And when we got there Friday night, it was warm Friday. When we got there Friday night, it was hot and we were sweating and I was irritated because it was supposed to be inside and air conditioned, and it was some of the stores air conditioning was running and they were blowing fans out trying to get some air circulating. Saturday was better simply because they had all of the doors propped open, and just happened that Saturday it was in the low 70s instead of being in the mid 80s like it had been all week. So we were just blessed with a very cool evening Friday night, which helped cool the whole place down. And then they actually opened up both ends of the hallway and let that cool, there was a breeze and it let that breeze through and it was really nice. So I think that's all I have, guys. Next week, actually not next week really, this is Sunday. Wednesday night, me and Tara are leaving. We're going to Refined Vibes retreat for the weekend, next weekend. so excited to get away and to do that. I am spend some more time with my girl and around people who love to do what I do. So I'm looking forward to meeting all of those ladies. Tara is in their Patreon and speaks very highly of them all, and she's super excited. So we're driving down Wednesday night, staying pretty close to it because we got to show up Thursday morning for an early check-in. So excited to get away from that. So I'm taking off again next week on Thursday, Friday from work, but I'm going to the retreat. So I've got to figure out what my game plan is for what I want to market prep and make while I'm there, which I can't crochet every single day. All day long, my hands will just scream. So we're doing other fun activities on top of that. And then I'll probably take my Switch, and I'll obviously take my crochet stuff. And I have my whole, since it's not a market, I'm going to have my whole huge SUV to fill up with whatever we want to take. So I was telling Tara, I'm like, we got to take those moving bags that we put plushies in and each just fill one with yarn. I mean, you could leave them in the car, and then as you think, you know, but just kind of have a little bit of a plan, but obviously not feel like we're going to run out and not have what we need or want. If we get in the mood to make something and you don't have the yarn for it, that just really sucks. So okay, I think that is all for this week, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this market recap. If you have any questions, comments, put them down in the description down below. I love to answer your questions and talk with you guys about all things crochet. So I appreciate you being here. Have a great week, guys, and happy crocheting. We'll see ya. Bye.